Okay, the time being 9 o'clock on Tuesday, June 17th. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wapaka County Board of Supervisors to order. First, I want to welcome all of you to our fourth session at the fairgrounds, especially for our viewing audience who may be watching this telecast. We have a major renovation project going on at the courthouse and are moving staff around in the courthouse and sending staff off-site to other buildings. And next month, the county board will be meeting at the Wapaka County Highway Office, 2670 County Road 8 in Wapaka.
Next month.
Now down to business.
August will be meeting, not July.
August will be.
Yes,
August meeting will be at the Wapaka County Highway. Thanks, Kristen.
yes.
Okay, down to business, start with roll call. Not logged in, please log in.
I'm not gonna make it.
I'm gonna be present.
I see you.
I'll mark you present. And Supervisor Ritchie is here, yes. Yeah.
Jax isn't working.
But everybody, Jake is going,
Yeah.
Cam is going. Whatever.
My wife's in jelly on it.
Roll call will show that we have 22 members present and 5 absent.
Thank you. Next public meeting statement. This meeting and all other meetings of this board are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so that citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. All right, next, please stand and join me in silent meditation and celestial to flight. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next. Approve the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda. Supervisor
Not sure how to turn them down.
made the motion. There was a second, Supervisor Fedorowicz seconds the motion. Any changes, comments on the agenda? If not, please vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's start our agenda.
That's how I okay.
It's not doing anything.
Just hold on, wait, can't see. I sign in. Yeah, this is Ted's now. We're at approval, Jennifer, right?
Yes. Okay, hopefully that takes care of the bugs. Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Next, approve the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for May 20th, 2025? Supervisor Yeager, second by Supervisor Hurdle. Any changes to the minutes? If not, please vote.
Supervisor Muck votes yes. Okay. Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Yeah, I'll just do voice vote. How would you? Yes, okay. Thank you. Supervisor Hardy? Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Moving on to ordinances, we have several ordinances to approve. Starting with A, the Wapaka County Shoreline Protection Ordinance, Wapaka Code of Ordinances, Chapter 32. Supervisor Zog, Ryan's going to explain first.
Morning. Morning. So these ordinances, what these represent is our annual process that we've had, that we've been doing now for 10 years now in the office, where we, at the end of the year, or ending the building season here, we take all the changes that we've seen over the previous building season, and also any other changes that are being presented to us in terms of, when it comes to shoreline protection ordinance, when it comes to the floodplain ordinance. We put that together in one ordinance revision package. So the way we work this is, in February, we have a meeting with all of our towns and we present all these changes that we have. And then after that, we give the towns 3 months to be able to take all these revisions to the planning commissions and to their town boards. So then they can discuss it with them and get any feedback back to us. Once we receive that feedback, we then take it to our planning and zoning committee to go over what we're hearing from the towns and if there's any changes that might be necessary. And so these changes that we have here, or these proposals that we have this morning, have all gone through that process and they've already been approved by the planning and zoning committee. This one specifically, the Shoreline Protection Ordinance in Chapter 32, what this represents is the model ordinance that's given to us by the DNR. So the way this particular ordinance works is they give us a model ordinance. We then take that model ordinance, incorporate it into our existing format that we have. We then send it back out to the DNR, and then they don't tell us whether or not it's approved. Meaning, it's using the exact same language, it has all the exact same provisions that's required as part of the model ordinance. And I will tell you that when it comes to the shoreline protection ordinance, there was one issue that they did flag, That they did get back to us with some changes that were needed, so we added that language in, and then we put that into the ordinance, and we sent that back out to the towns with a little addendum saying that these are the rules that have actually been changed since we sent that out to you. When it comes to specific changes in it, there really isn't a whole lot, that's different. What's interesting is that one on top there, we talked about fences, specific to Act 105, that was a statutory, that was a law that was changed here just a couple years ago relating to fences near roadways. Beyond that, it's clarifying language, and being essentially rewording things for clarification's sake. Is there any specific questions on the
Okay, motion to approve Supervisor Zod. Is there a second? Supervisor Johnson? Motion's been made and seconded to approve the shoreline protection ordinance. Any questions, comments? If not, please vote.
Supervisor Muck. Supervisor Spearings. Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Next, we have B, the Wapaka County zoning ordinance, Wapaka Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34.
So chapter 34, this was a little bit different than the total ordinance. It's like that this is our ordinance, and so we have full control over the wording of this. This is nothing to do with the DNR or our ordinances. This is solely our ordinance in the back. And so the changes that we have, I guess the highlighted changes that we are presenting in terms with this year's proposal is we're including a definition of pet. So we've never had that before. It's nice to have that in black and white for clarification's sake when we're working with contractors as to what we consider to be a patio. The other highlighted thing that I want to call your attention is in section 14.528. This is a review. This is in response to some issues that we had with towns, just to make sure that we are clarifying, to make sure it's understood in terms of how the process works with rezones. So what it does is it says that the county is in charge of consistency requirements related to a county comprehensive plan, and the county is required to look at the town's comprehensive plan when it comes to consistency. And what this is also saying under parent C is that if the comp plan gets denied by the town, the whole process stops, because the rezone at that point becomes moot. And if the whole thing falls off and it doesn't keep traveling to the final zone committee. This is in contrast to additional use permits, where if a town were to deny it, it still travels to the final committee because of the bylaw and stay of the state.
May I have a motion to approve Wapaka County zoning ordinance, Wapaka Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34. Supervisor Vasquez makes motions. Or a second? Supervisor Way. Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Chapter 34. Any questions or discussion? If not, please vote.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Supervisor Ertl, yes, okay. Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Next, we have C, Wapaka County floodplain ordinance, Wapaka County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 36.
So chapter 36, or the floodplain ordinance here. With the shoreline ordinance, in the sense that it's a very similar process. This is the model ordinance that is given to us by DNR, by FEMA. And so it's the same thing where we take this model ordinance, incorporate our ordinance, send it back to them. We cannot approve it until they have certified it as well. We meet that, their requirements for the law and administrative code. The one thing, a couple things I want to call out though about this floodplain ordinance that's a little bit different with years past. There's one thing in here, and it's in section 3.32F. So the lowest floor that must be to the regional flood protection elevation. And so this is for structures designed to allow for automatic entry of flood lines below the regional flood elevation. Before, it used to always be 2 feet above the regional flood elevation. This iteration, this proposal that FEMA is putting forward now says that it has to be 2 or above. So it's slightly a little more flexible that way. That's a difference that was there in the past. The only other thing that I will call out, section 1.52, this is a floodplain study for Wolf River. So this is also something that we have in the ordinance that is above and beyond what is in the model ordinance given to us. We're required to put these every time we have a floodplain study. We bring it up as part of the floodplain ordinance. There is actually, there's one more thing on this floodplain ordinance that is a bit different than what they put into their model, and that is when somebody is making a development in a flood area, we have them do surveys before and after. FEMA has given us the discretion to be able to do that, ideally to make sure that we are building outside of floodplain, and then afterwards we get an as-built to make sure that they did in fact build where they said to build, and we now know that they're still outside the flood. It's a documentation. The rest of it is rewording, basically lateral movements being made. Any questions on the?
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt chapter 36? Supervisor Vasquez made the motions. Here, second. Supervisor. Seconds. Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve chapter 36 changes. Any questions or discussion? If not, please vote.
Yeah.
Supervisor Muck. Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Next, we have the Wapaka County Building and Building Regulations Ordinance, Wapaka County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 53.
So chapter 53, our building and building regulations ordinance, this is in relation to our uniform dwelling code or our building inspection program that we facilitate through our office. So this ordinance is so different from when it comes to the shoreline floodplain, and it's this is our ordinance, our ability to make changes as we find necessary, rather than having to go through the state or any type of approval. This does still get sent to the state to make sure that we're still following or basic uniform dwelling. I will say that. A couple of the changes that we have associated with this is that the biggest one is that we're taking out the need to show that any structure alteration that's going to be greater than $5,000 of market value required in a building permit, something that we out of the ordinance that has at a level of subjectivity that has caused some issues. In terms of when a building permit is necessary or not necessary. The other thing is that we have in here the fact that the certified municipality status, when it comes to commercial inspection, we are not certified for commercial inspections. That all goes through the state, so that's being taken on board. That's basically the highlight of the of our changes.
Okay. We have a motion to amend chapter 53. Supervisor Fedorowicz makes the motions, or a second. Supervisor Spearing seconds it. Any questions or discussion? If not, please vote.
Supervisor Muck.
Yeah.
Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Okay. Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Thank you, Ryan Brown. All right, next we have E, amendments to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Finance and Taxation.
So this resolution or this amendment to chapter 4 has been to the committees of the Finance Committee. It also went to LJUS Committee, and it also was to Public Property Committee. The amendment is to add the notation in section 4.6 to include item C, paying for courthouse and courtroom security programs.
We have a motion to adopt the changes to chapter 4. Supervisor Ertl makes a motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Vasquez seconds it. Any questions or discussions on the chapter 4 changes? If not, please vote.
Supervisor Muck. Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Okay, next we have contracts. We have a contract to approve. UW extension CY 2025 contract.
Go ahead, Jim.
Sure.
I didn't see you here.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Solon. I'm the Extension Director here in the County. So happy to be here this morning. So the contract we have is the result of negotiating team meeting a couple of times. The negotiating team was established by finance committee to work through some of the details of the contract. Essentially, what you have is contract in line with past contracts. Reviewed by the extension committee earlier in the year. Some updates were made, discussions to kind of figure out maybe where there's some disagreement points, but basically coming back essentially the same. A few updates related to sharing information about volunteers, clarifying some of the language, but essentially continuing with status quo extension programs in local county. Yeah, so I think that's the basics. The negotiating team came together, through those two meetings, extensively supported where we're at. We're about this morning. So happy to take any questions when we do that.
We have a motion to approve the contract for the UW extension CY 2025 contract. Supervisor, excuse me,
Mikulski.
I'll make a motion.
Wingowski. Supervisor Greer seconds it.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second to approve it. Questions, discussion? Supervisor Eisentraut.
Yes, I have a question. I know the biggest problem they had was with the IT department. I don't know if that got satisfied or if they're still working on that.
I can start and then you can. Okay. Yeah, so basically the agreement came to, there was talk along the way of shifting entirely the IT to state support. What became the agreement with the negotiating team that we continue as is for 2025 and then look to do that shift in 2026. So assuming that, is where we go, we're not looking to see that change in 2026. But for this year, staying with the county providing IT support. We're in a new office location in London, which is on a separate network of the storage of data off of the county storage network. So we've made some of those shifts. We've also utilized staff to stay computed. So it's kind of in progress, but essentially status quo.
I was going to say that's point to the physical location, relocation to New London. Separated the UW extension staff because they're on their own wireless system. And previous to that, data had migrated from the county system to the state network. So that was a preliminary step. And then the physical move really consolidated that there was going to be segregation. And then logistics for next year is mostly related to startup. So, and as a good faith gesture, even if the state system is in place for IT next year, the county IT staff is willing to serve as first hands on that, to try to resolve very simple troubleshooting, issues related to UW systems, because there's not an IT person who's going to be physically located in Wolfpack County, obviously will not be able to come from Madison overall to the county. So they would sort of facilitating it in steps and stages related to IT and system work out logistically related to the.
Thank you. That clarifies my question, because I didn't see, things, I know the reasoning was because they were scammed before, and they have accountable IT trying to prevent that. And then our remodeling and all, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, if not, please vote.
We're voting on Version 7 of the contract.
Supervisor Muck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Supervisor Eisentraut, is yours locked up too?
Yeah.
How would you vote? Yes. Okay. Supervisor Hardy? And Supervisor Way? Okay, last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Okay, next we have the real property transaction, Dakin Minor Lake Landing lease agreement.
Morning, everybody. What we're talking about. Three separate items for the town of Dayton that we are going into another 20-year agreement with, to operate those as though it were our landing. Then in July and August, I think these two came up as, expiring for this year. So we wanted to get this done beforehand, and, like I say, we've been managing these landings for the last 20 years, and now we, went through and updated the contracts. Diane was very helpful in getting all that, the new language in there, so we're up to speed on everything with that. The towns have, we went back and forth with the town a few times, making sure everybody's happy with the way the agreement is. We did discuss this at the park committee and public property already. But basically, we run those two landings, and this will bring it out another 20 years. Then last year, we re-upped the ones with the town of Farmington. So after these two, we will have all the chain landings again under or there still are, but they will all be under the county's umbrella, which is helpful for the general public, because then they have to have one, season pass and or daily, and it'll get you at all those landings. So, any questions about this agreement? Anyone?
Okay. If not, we have a motion to approve the Dakin Minor Lake Landing lease agreement. Supervisor Krieger.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Supervisor Suze, seconds the motion. Any questions or discussion? If not, please vote. Thank you, John.
Supervisor Muck, yes. Okay. Last chance to vote. That carries 22-1.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. Conservation report, Brian Hazel.
Okay, good morning. Thanks for being my captive audience. We'll touch on what happened last year. I'll probably bore you with a couple of the same old slides in the beginning because I feel it's important. We just mention why we're here and what we're doing. Land and water conservation departments or land and water conservation committees are mandated under chapter 92 of the state statutes. And the legislative intent there is to reduce non-point source pollution. The committees are empowered to hire staff, that's us, the department. And we have the power to regulate, create county ordinances, and we're also tasked with land and water resource management planning. What does that look like? Those are 10-year plans that contain some specific DATCAP and DNR requirements that they ask of us, as well as the things that we wish to put into it. And most importantly, they go about implementing the Wisconsin Ag Performance Standards, which are DNR statutory items. And it basically requires us to have an implementation strategy and an annual work plan, an annual reporting state of things we're doing. Our current plan is a 10-year plan that's good till 2031. It's the fourth one we've had. So all those planned goals, again, are basically to protect and conserve our county water and soil resources. To administer our ordinances, we have two of those, chapter 47, which is our conservation easement ordinance, and chapter 51, which is our county version of the runoff ordinance that the state has. We spend a lot of time acquiring funding to do our work, and then we do evaluation and monitoring of our programs and try to do some information and education of the public as well. What are those ag performance standards? I guess they're worth repeating once a year at least. But there's some prohibitions regarding manure locations, manure storage facilities. All farms are supposed to have a nutrient management plan that tracks their nutrient and manure use. That's not just for animal-based agriculture, that's for crop-based agriculture as well. Farms that are within certain distances to streams and lakes have a few extra requirements of them. Having clean water diverted away from animal lots is one of those. And we regulate manure storage facilities that were built after 2002. Just a little reminder of what non-point source pollution looks like. Those are the bad things that happen after rainfalls by and large. EPA has a definition. I just happened to use this in a presentation to Rotary a few months ago. I guess we like to say here that we try to make running water walk and make brown things green. Pretty simple. I know everybody's seen this picture before, but it's kind of breathtaking what a bad storm can do to Green Bay. This is a really old picture. It's about 20 years old. I've used it in a lot of presentations over the years. And just stuck it back in because 20 years ago, we could not manage to work with this landowner up in the southern part of DuPont. And finally, last year, with a little help from DNR and the regulatory arm, we're now working with this guy to stop that manure from getting into the road ditch and waters of the state. So what's new this year that we haven't done in a while? We did some well testing. This is a map of the last time we did well testing in 2018, primarily looking at nitrates and bacteria in people's private wells. Your 2018 results, basically show about 11% of the wells we tested were over the health standard of 10 parts per million. I don't think that's too unexpected for our county. We don't have the problems that our neighbors to the west have, but there are some sensitive areas that have nitrate issues. On that map, the red dots are the bad places. But we use this as a basis for what we did last year. We went to those red dots from 2018 and used those as a priority location. We drew a 1 mile circle around them, and we used that to identify people that we would like to sample their wells last year. So we do this using GIS. We're able to pluck their mailing addresses off and offer them well sampling within those zones. One of the things we did a little different this time, in 2018, we were using University of Stevens Point. They have a state certified lab there. Many of you maybe don't realize, but Jed and the health department now also have a state certified lab for nitrates. So we were doing all this testing in-house with Jed. I guess the beauty of that is the funding we have for this is funneled back into the town. And here's our results from that effort. You can see, obviously, we concentrated our work in certain areas. The goal is really just to educate people about whether or not they have a private well with an issue from the health standard. I don't know that we're to the point yet where you can find a reason overall for high nitrates. Certainly in certain locales, you can point the finger at certain land uses that are happening that may be affecting that. But this time around, we were a little higher. We were at 17% of wells that were over the health standard, 10 parts per million. I don't look at that as a indicator that things are getting worse. It's really an indicator that we picked the bad spots to go looking for more bad spots. And that's kind of what we found. So through the process, I think Jed's department had follow-up with the folks that had bad bacteria or bad nitrates. They were able to give out some suggestions, maybe do some retesting at times, and try to educate folks on what they should or shouldn't be doing if they have some bad results. Altogether, I think we spent about $22,000 on this last year. Originally, that money was allocated. Heidi had an environmental fund through the ARPA process that would have been county money, but we also had leftover funds from way back in 2008 when the American Transmission Company ran a power line through town of Matson. The county got about $400,000 to use environmental issues, and we still had some money left in that. Tried to use it up, or come close to using it up to get that off the books, and that paid for this sampling effort last year. What else is new that we haven't done in a while? So I talked about chapter 47. That's a conservation easement ordinance. We're one of only a handful of counties that have such a thing in the state, but it allows us to be a holder or co-holder of a conservation easement, which is generally a development rights extinguishment on farmland or forest land in order to protect that land in perpetuity for farming or forest interests going forward. We had not had any activity on this ordinance in probably a decade. And suddenly last year, we had 3 owners follow through with these easements. You saw each one of them at county board. They have to be approved here. Chairman Morak has to sign them. This is just the map on the left there is the town of Lynn. Those colored parcels are all places with existing easements. Town of Lynn is full of them. And this happens to be Art and Rita Richardson. They applied for federal funding for their easement. They were lucky enough to get it. It was sort of a perfect storm for them at the time. That's their property on the right there. So that was one of the 3 easements. That was about 280 acres that they've extinguished their development rights on. What is our role in that? We're a co-holder in this easement with American Farmland Trust and the federal government, USDA. But they look to us to do the yearly monitoring. They do the legal work up front. USDA is paying for the easement. We are doing the annual monitoring required. This is just an example. We're now able to do this by drone. It's fairly quick each year. The staff can do it in an hour or 2 with the drone. Those are on the left is a map of where the drone is as it takes pictures of the property. On the right are the pictures it's taking. In this case, the Richardsons are beef grazers. You see what looks like a Christmas tree field. Those are actually hay bales that they're grazing in the wintertime. When it snows, they do that instead of grazing grass. So again, I think we had 3 of those totaling about 460 acres this year, which was the first in quite a while. Some of our old standbys, farmland preservation tax credit. This is a joint program with planning and zoning. In 2024, things didn't change much from the standpoint of a tax credit. Those 10 townships that are colored on the map are the places that this is that have eligibility for this. What was different last year is that it was the end of our 10-year plan of the state that allows us to have this program. And therefore, Ryan and I had to go back out to these 10 townships and have meetings with them as we renewed the 10-year plan for another 10 years going forward. And some townships, that was a simple one meeting. Other towns wanted to do a lot of outreach. I think some of them we might have went back 3 and 4 times through the course of the year. And through that process, some of them had some eligible land, some of them take a little away. I think by and large, there was more additions this time around. What does this do for us? Well, as you can see there's about $450,000 of income tax credits that go back to landowners in the county. And in order to qualify for that, other than being in the eligible areas determined through the planning and zoning process, they have to come to our department for a certificate of compliance that says they meet all those ag performance standards that we talked about in the beginning. Oops, a little fast on the trigger. Nutrient management planning is one of the requirements of farmland preservation. It's also one of the ag performance standards. And the state likes us to keep trying to increase our numbers. That little hard to read purple map they put out each year. Well, PAC is at about 56% coverage of our ag land. That's better than most counties, but it's still a long way from full compliance. So we pick away at that each year. Department of Agriculture provides us with cost sharing to help work with landowners on developing new plans. Most of the plans are done in the private sector. As you can see there, we had 147 plans turned in last year, 110 done by private sector, 37 done by our staff. They kind of do that through an educational process. We're trying to train a landowner to do his own planning, lowers their expenses greatly. All they need to do is some soil sampling every 4th year. And frankly, we see better ownership in implementing these plans when they're written by the landowner. Funding for the work we do comes from a host of partners. Department of Agriculture and DNR are our 2 biggest partners. We'll talk a little bit about DNR funding in a moment. USDA, NRCS is also a big partner from the standpoint of they have a lot of money generally and not a lot of staff. So our staff helps them spend their money on best management practices within the county. And they do the hard part. They do the paperwork, the contracting, the payment stuff that nobody likes to do. Generally, it works out good. Like we're going to see a little retraction probably in some of those funds due to the things going on at the federal level right now. They don't have a lot allocated for this coming year. But in past years, they're usually spending $500,000 to $1 million a year with the county. So a big part of that chasing funds with DNR is based on 9 key element watershed planning. And we continue to do more of that. We started in 2017. There's a list. We now have 4 of those plans that are completed in the county, and we're working on one for the Pigeon Lake area. That kind of came out of the Pigeon Lake District doing their own lake management plan. One of their 4 goals in that plan was to try to clean up non-point source pollution within the watershed, and that happens by having a 9 key element plan. And we were lucky enough to apply for some funding with USDA and got $50,000 to help write that plan. So we'll come back to that map in a second. This is what the state looks like right now. 90 element plans exist in those red areas. They're being built in the blue areas. This map's a year old, so they didn't have our last two on here. We try to keep up with our neighbors. What happens in the 90 element plan? Well, one of the first things again is water testing. The map, air photo map there gives a half dozen locations that we sampled for a couple of years in the Bear Creek watershed prior to putting that plan together. The results are on the bottom there. You can see the laser, this little red line on the bottom is where these samples should be at or below. So we're significantly higher at those sample sites when testing for nitrates, phosphorus, and suspended solids in the water of the streams and ditches. So back to that map to talk about implementation of these plans, we have to find the funding to do so, but the best funding available to us are for people that have plans in place. We started in 2020 in Bear Lake. We've had some pretty steady funding there. Wyoega, Shaw Creek, now Bear Creek, and Pigeon River. Oddly enough, the Pigeon River, Pigeon Lake area, we received funding last year without a 90 element plan, simply due to the flavor of funding the state was using. And then just so happens coincidentally, we had applied for funding in Bear Creek last April, and we found out this morning that we're the #1 ranked application in the state for that. So I don't know where they'll draw the funding line, but it'll be below us. What do we use that money for? One of the biggest things we've been using that money for in the last 5 years is to promote cover cropping on ag fields. There again is the list of those 9 key element planned areas that have grant funding, and they provide a lot more money than the Department of Agriculture's funding for other places in the county. So last year we had almost 5,000 acres of cover crops implemented and at a cost of almost $300,000 in cost sharing. Probably, everything we do, all the money we spend, we have to model the results and report that back to the state. And coincidentally, cover crops provide one of the best bangs for our buck when modeling phosphorus and nitrate runoff. So I'll get to the fun stuff. We, of course, do a lot of the same projects for erosion control, for animal waste, and those kind of things. But here's a little bit from last year. This is a couple of fields and a small beef lot just on Highway 22, surrounding either side of the Union Town Hall up there. Notably, obviously, fairly close to Manawa and what happened on July 5th. So we had, you can see a big gully running through several of these fields. The landowner contacted us. A lot of it was created from the giant culvert under Highway 22, so a lot of that water comes from the south side of the highway. So we designed some dikes in the middle of the field. They're farmable. We call them water and sediment control basins. They have big tile outlets. And the purpose is to cool the water, allow the sediment to settle out in the field and not carry it to the stream and create a gully. So here on the map, we designed 3 different basins in this field with 2 tile outlets. Those were constructed in early spring last year. You can see the earthwork. You can see where the tile went in down to a ditch here. On the inset photo, that's just the finished dike, the inlets for the water, and eventually the farmer will farm that bare ground with a crop. And then along came July 5th, the 6+ inches that hit Manawa last July or July 5th. Luckily, staff ran out in the middle of the storm and took some pictures of this site. We fully expected to lose it. I mean, these are designed for 10 or 25-year storm events, which range in the 3.5 to 4 inch rainfall category. And Manawa was approaching a 500-year storm with 6 to 7 inches of rainfall. We were pretty pleased. This is the water coming out of that culvert under Highway 22. And here you see that same basin in the last picture. The water's cooled up into the soybeans. It's designed to empty out within 24 hours to not kill the crop. And we didn't lose the structures. They overtopped, didn't create a problem. We didn't lose them. We were pretty happy about that. This is a look afterwards. So what you're seeing up here is all of that sediment laying on the ground, laying on the soybean leaves. It takes a couple more rainstorms to wash that stuff off. Hurt the crop, but it's also not in water state. So the only harm down here was that some of the stone they put underneath that road culvert wound up 100 yards down the field. Pick it out. We still do a lot of egg waste work. This was the last project in the Wyoming grant area last year. There's a family, the Gonzaleses, that have been buying up dairies in the county. They own 4 of them now. They happen to buy this one south of Butternut Ridge, not too far from our county property there, the county farm. And they were constructing some new barn. They were pasturing a lot of animals out in a not so good area with some ditch running off to the west. Manure management was kind of a problem. So we come in and assist them with cost sharing and building a manure storage. This is just construction of that hole in the ground. It's really nice to have it drawn for good photos. We're nearing completion of that. It's lined with concrete. We don't have good enough soils in this county to have earth and manure storages anymore. But you see the process here of laying down a 1/4 acre of concrete. That's what it looked like a few weeks after completion. Farms using it. They don't have mechanical manure transfer. They just push the manure out of the barns. Pretty simple and cost effective. Moving on to something different. Here we're on the shore of one of the Channel Lakes. Like a lot of properties, they have grass down to the shoreline. You see that here, although some of the grass has been sprayed off with Roundup here. And this is part of our Healthy Lakes program. These are real small grants for riparian landowners, either rivers or lakes. We've had a lot of participation in the chain, trying to encourage different things. We do little sediment basins on the property. We do these native plantings, which is what you see here. Here are those areas after they're planted last year. And then after they're growing up, we now have some native vegetation along the shoreline. A lot of DNR studies have shown that this is better for the lake, not to have mowed grass and fertilizer right down to the water's edge. So they've got some lines of vegetation. They also created some up above their rock wall here. These are generally $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 projects, but we probably do 10, 12 of these a year now with riparian owners. We also contract with Golden Sands, RC&D. They're a nonprofit now. They used to be kind of a quasi-governmental entity, but they do the aquatic invasive species work for a 12-county area. We get funding from the state, we pass it on to them. We really can't afford to hire staff for the amount of funding we get. They combine that, they do a pretty good job doing the planning, collaborating with lake districts to do various things to mitigate the invasive species growing in the water. We still have our Upper Fox Wolf demonstration network. Matter of fact, last year was the first year of the second grant. So originally they'd given us $460,000 to run a 10 farm, 8-county area. I'm the financial manager for the whole area, all the counties. Somebody had to volunteer. I don't know what I was thinking that day. But, We're the largest such network in the state, and we got larger last year. Supposed to be up to 17 farms now in a 9-county area for 2025. Shara had not participated originally. They are now participating as well. So the goals of that project are really some innovative conservation to promote the soil health movement. Part of that is cover cropping, no tilling, different management directives on the land. And then we try to do some outreach and evaluation. Each year we have an annual gathering in February. Share that research with demo farmers and anybody else that's willing to come. This is a low disturbance manure application, something the demo farms promote. Spreading manure on a living crop is always better than doing it in the fall on bare dirt. Another thing we've got a couple of farms doing now, that picture on the left is GPS collars on the cattle. They graze them. They've also taken that one step further now, and they're using invisible fence, just like you can put in your yard for your dog. They're doing that with cattle now, so they're restrained by their collar to a geographical area. They also get a lot of data from this collar on what the cattle are doing, how much they're eating, how much time they spend on their feet, laying down, that type of stuff. And of course, that picture on the right is just some more cover crops. Actually, some of the stuff they graze at some point season. Just to end with our numbers, we spent 1.7 million last year. 1.3 million of that was grant funding from other sources. So our cost of the county levy was 389,000. I think that was about 7,000 under our budget. So I'm happy to stay on track and manage to keep funding ourselves with other sources. That's it for me.
Very good. Any questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. Great report.
I was just gonna compliment Brian on he's way better than most on getting this outside funding. And money spent here is bring some taxpayer money back here.
Yeah, if you're gonna give it away, you might as well bring it.
Yeah, good job.
And I guess I should thank the committee too. I mean, you've all been very supportive for all of the time I've spent with this department. It's good to have support. That's the first problem in a lot of counties, that they don't have a lot of support from their committees and county boards. So thank you all for that.
The piling by Bear Creek Corners on the Lone Farm, was that funded or was that privately?
No, it's private. I mean, piling that's done just for drainage of fields is not eligible for any type of state funding. So
Okay.
that's just the farmer spending money to try to have a better crop. There are times when we do some of our projects that a farmer may add a little bit of that in, just because they may be using our work as their lateral or main. We'll help them out a little bit with some advice. But
Is there any funding for tiling or is that all silent?
that's all private. Other than what we need to do to implement a water and sediment control base and some other practices. And there's been a lot of tiling lately, the last couple of years. And it comes and goes. I don't know that we could say commodity prices are good enough to drive it, but people must be becoming less tolerant of wetland. Thank you.
Great report. Thanks, Brian. Next, I will give you my report. First of all, for the very important stuff. Thank you, Supervisor Vasquez, for the wonderful treats. Very nice variety. It's going to take me a while to sample them all, but I'll give it my best shot. I want to express our sympathy to Lois Brissett, whose mother passed away recently. So sorry, Lois, for that. I want to thank the Gold Cross Foundation and the Rotary Club of Wapaka for installing 10 new automatic external defibrillators say that 10 times real fast. Across the Wapaka area. We do have one at the courthouse, should you ever need it. It's great to see the housing and library projects moving forward, including a new 98 unit complex in New London and the River North Ridge project, which includes 124 apartment units and 35 single family homes in Wapaka. In New London on June 10th, we had the groundbreaking ceremony for the new public library at the site of the old First State Bank building. Things are booming in Wapaka County. Finally, belated happy Father's Day to all your dads. Hope you got to enjoy some time with the kids. And I hope to see all of you at the Manawa Rodeo July 3rd. Now to the important stuff. Vice Chair Nygaard, do you have anything for us?
Thank you. I just want to say what you already know, and that's, if people got questions, you saw how big these ordinances are when you skim through to look at the revisions. Encourage people, if you got any questions, just call zoning and tell them what you're thinking of doing. And it's just a whole lot easier to have these things squared away up front rather than to try and fix them afterwards. So any building plans, ideas, just encourage people to go there before they start, because you see how big these are. And I've read through them a couple times over the years. Do I remember them? No. So anyway, just encourage people that whatever they're gonna do, just give a call and tell them what you're thinking of. So thank you.
Thanks for the chair. Okay, we have several appointments to consider, including the reappointment of Art Richardson to serve on the Board of Adjustments for a 3-year term ending June 30th of 2028. I have a motion for that effect. Supervisor Hardy has made the motion. Is there a second? Eisentraut. Is there any comments or questions on that appointment? If not, please vote.
Supervisor Muck, how do you? Oh, yours actually worked. Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Supervisor Ritchie, how do you vote? Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Next, I'd like to reappoint Michelle Stravey to serve on the Board of Adjustments for a 3-year period ending June 30th of 2028. We have a motion to that effect. Supervisor Vasquez, is there a second? Supervisor Seuss, seconds it. Any questions or discussion on that appointment? If not, please vote.
Yeah.
Supervisor Muck, yes, okay. Supervisor Spearings, how do you vote? Last chance to vote. That carries 23-0.
Now, in announcements and correspondence, you have the 2026 budget manual in your correspondence. There's also a human resource highlights newsletter, a directory of public officials for 2025. And reminder for August, thank you, Christy.
Yes.
We will be meeting at Wapaka County Highway Office, 2670 County Road A, Wapaka. Next month, we'll still be meeting here. And very important for you supervisors, the WCA annual conference will be held September 21st to the 23rd. Please let Christy know if you plan on attending the conference. And that's all we have. So I look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We are adjourned.